Separated by cosmic cabinets, Brandon, Paul, and Logan are broadcasting the Breakdown podcast live using their telepathic powers. My name is Brandon Miracle. I'm broadcasting live from the Break Room Arcade. If you look south of me in the video version, you'll see the beautiful face of Paul Anderson, who is broadcasting live from the Break Room Clubhouse. If you look to my right in the video version, you'll see the beautiful face of Logan Welliver, who's doing some things I've never really seen happen before. He's broadcasting live from the Break Room bedroom. Welcome to the show, everybody. We're going to talk about a couple of things we've been up to this week, like we've been watching the show Final Space, In This Corner of the World, a movie I saw. Deviljho came out in Monster Hunter, a little bit of news for Dragon Ball Super, and some Super Smash Brothers, Splatoon 2, and Nindy news you'll see at the end of the show. So thank you guys for listening. Just how you guys been up to? How you guys been this week? How you guys been up to?
I've been up to good.
Woo!
Yeah, I mean, a few things have happened this week. I mean, I think like last week I didn't work like at all. I just didn't have any hours, and then this week was a full 40-hour week. Which a 40-hour week for me generally is pretty chill because my job is pretty chill. So I end up doing a lot of gaming. But this week I was a lot more productive. If anybody's been on the channel, you know, in the past like 6-7 hours, we have a new video up. Excuse me. That was made by yours truly. It was quite the how do you say,
experience?
Yeah, you know, I don't have a lot of experience doing video editing, so it was a learning experience. Oh man.
You'll get better the more you do it. Yeah,
I did a few new things within Premiere, and that was fun. I did a little bit of like keyframing. My tendency is to call it automation, which I guess in a sense it is.
In video, it's animation.
Well, right, but it's also you're automating an animation. It's, but yeah, doing a little bit of that, not too much, and so hopefully my next project will go a lot smoother, and my input will increase because I'll be more familiar with it. I'll also be less scared of the program. That's one of the reasons. Like, oh no, you don't want to go into it because it's so daunting. Because you're like, what do I do? But thankfully, I have you guys and your beautiful faces helping me out along the way.
Before
Brandon
this video,
and Paul.
had you like done any other editing in program other than Premiere Pro? Because Premiere Pro is like a really overwhelming program to jump into for your first video.
Yeah, very, very little. I have my personal channel on YouTube, which has like 7 subscribers. I think it actually might be 13. Ooh, big numbers.
I got 9. If it makes you feel better.
Yeah, and so I have 2 videos up there. Both are just live covers, me singing into a microphone with my guitar. Just some songs that I really liked, songs I really liked. No, there's those 2 are some of my favorite songs ever written. And so I did a little bit of that, but the editing for those was very, very straightforward. It was like, okay, here's a block, and then I just add my audio underneath it, and I know how to match that up. It's pretty easy, and then I just add some like transitions, and then I'm done. This one, I had a lot more content. I was going between different types of footage and changing in between, so it was a lot more active.
The big thing you want to know, like, is as you learn keyframing, well, obviously that's a big important part of things, but you want to learn how keyframes and animation affect effects, and more importantly, how that affects your stack in a layer. So, you know, it's much like Photoshop, where your video reacts to other video in a layer stack. So as you learn some of that, it's just going to kind of open up for you. Learning the tools and like all of the logistical things about Premiere, that's the easy part.
Right. Yeah, no, it's interesting because like I had a similar experience with most DAWs, digital audio workstation, for those who don't know. But there are a lot of similarities between DAWs. So if you give me a DAW, I'm already looking for, okay, how do I stretch this out? Where's the editing tools? But I already know most of the basics, so it's easier to go in and just find where everything is. Whereas obviously I'm not as familiar with Premiere. But I had a great experience. I'm learning, and hopefully that will help with our content output as well.
That's what we want to hear.
Oh, go ahead, Paul.
I was going to say, I've also had a relatively exciting week. It's been pretty busy going from like one thing to the next, and so I haven't gotten as much done as I wanted to. But as I talked about last podcast, I had a broken down computer, and so I was kind of left hanging for a little bit there. But I was able to quickly pull some money out of savings, find something I could afford, and I hit the jackpot with this one because I paid for a certain processor. I got a lesser processor than what I wanted to get some of the other features I was looking for in this computer. And as it turns out, someone made boo-boo, and I got a slightly better processor than what I paid for.
Yay!
And so now that I got a new workstation, I can be a lot more productive, and I've just kind of really changed my work environment here. So I'm really pumped.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat there, Paul. I ended up purchasing a new monitor, and it's not here yet. I'm excited for that. I've been dealing with a single monitor at my home workstation ever since I built this computer, and it's been a nightmare.
Yeah, it sounds like a nightmare. I've been working with 2 monitors now for like at least like a month and a half, and I wouldn't want to go back.
There was a big period of time at my actual job where, I was dealing with 3 monitors, and I had just so much space to work with. Organization was fantastic. So going from that back down to 1 monitor was just awful. On top of that, I got a new router and modem coming because I'm still kind of using rental from Comcast. So I found a good bundle on IGN Deals. If you're not following IGN Deals on Twitter and Facebook, you should do that because they like, Logan, you got a Blue Yeti microphone because we found one on IGN Deals today.
Yeah, I mean, and it wasn't even I that found it on IGN Deals.
I found it and I sent it over to you.
I was like, oh, here's a message. Get a good deal on a Blue Yeti.
Deals for like months now, and it wasn't until the day that I saw that deal in particular, and it's like, okay, that's it. I'm following them.
Not every deal's gonna resonate with everybody, but sometimes it hits you. You're like, gah, gah, gah. Like I either don't have enough money for it, or you're excited because you do have the money for it, and it's a great price.
The bundle I got was both a Netgear modem and a router, and essentially I got the price of both for the price of one. So it was a significant amount of money off, and it was exactly the moment where I said, yep, now's the time for me to upgrade. I'm also going to end up saving some money because of this rental equipment. I spend a significant amount of money every month just to pay to have that. So it was kind of a fair trade. In about 7 or 8 months, this thing will have paid for itself anyway, and I'll get better performance out of it. So that's exciting.
Oh, yeah. My sister in the chat says 3 monitors is the best. Yes, you are right.
Yes. I did it for social media management, and it made my life so easy.
I've only been fortunate enough in my life to have 2 monitors, and since I got away from that workstation, it's just been all downhill. It's been awful, and so I'm this close to getting back to 2 monitors. I'm super pumped. And then
what'll happen is because we're working so hard and we have our priorities straight, eventually you get to that 3 monitors sweet spot.
I've already been thinking about
4 monitors. Guys, we're not thinking big enough. 4 monitors, wall mounted.
Boom, 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 boom. 4 monitors.
Boom.
And then you could combine it into one massive 16K screen because they're all 4K monitors.
I gotta be honest. I see a lot of gaming setups that use significant amounts of monitors to make one big gaming image. I don't find that super appealing. Just personally, the breaks in between the screens. I don't know. I don't like that.
I'd rather just have 4 separate monitors. Logan in the chat says LED wall. Logan, you are absolutely right. Just make the whole wall a monitor. Why have different monitors?
You know what? Just a projector. We'll go even further.
That's actually something I was going to say earlier. Ideally, we should have a projector in our movie room.
Yes. That's a future investment I've secretly been thinking about for a long part of my life. But speaking of movies, I actually watched a couple. Well, I think one but I at least watched one. I watched a movie this week that really resonated with me. It's called In This Corner of the World. It's available on Netflix right now. It is an anime film that takes place during World War II. It features a Japanese family in their home, and essentially is kind of a slice of life film about these characters living their daily lives during World War II. And what's surprised me so much about this movie is it's very easygoing. There's not a lot of stress, not a lot of pressure during, you know, this World War II. You know, there's some significant events that take place in World War II that are represented in the movie, but by and large, most of the time, they're not perceived as very severe. At least the characters don't react in that way because it's something they're used to. And that's a really neat perspective I haven't seen in an anime film that takes place in World War II, because there's a lot of those. One of them that comes to mind is Grave of the Fireflies. So
this is an anime film?
I said that at the beginning.
Sorry. I'm tired.
I think this is a great, like, paired movie with Grave of the Fireflies, because they approach the same thing in two very different ways. In Grave of the Fireflies, you're dealing with a young man and his little sister as they're out on their own, experiencing the effects of World War II and trying to survive. In this case, it's a very, you know, well put together family who are just living their daily lives. You know, they have a farm, just, you know, it really focuses on a housewife just taking care of things around the house for the majority of the movie. So there's a great, like, contrast there, and you get two very different, but at the same time very similar perspectives on a very awful event. So the film starts out at a very brisk pace. You meet this woman, and she's just like a kid at the beginning of the film, and then very quickly you see her grow up until she turns the age of 19. At which point, a young man she's never met before asks for her hand in marriage. She gets married off to this family, moves to another city. She was in Hiroshima, and for those of you who know, Hiroshima was the site of the bomb, which plays into the film later on. But she moves into this family, and for a large portion of the movie, it's just her getting adjusted to her new life, while World War II is happening in the background. So World War II, for a lot of the movie, just serves as a background piece to what her, you know, just her regular old emotional struggles are. And as the movie progresses, World War II sneaks its way further and further into their daily lives, and you see how that affects them more and more. And I was very emotionally drawn to this movie. I will warn you that if you're not into movies that start a little bit slower, this might not be for you. It does take a bit of time. It's over 2 hours long. But it uses a beautiful watercolor palette, gorgeous character designs. I'd highly recommend it. It's dubbed on Netflix. Came out in 2016.
That was my next question.
Okay.
So if you...
Is it on Netflix? Is it available to me right now?
I said that at the beginning. But
it's late, man.
It is late. So if you're looking for something with a little bit of meat, a little bit of depth, something that you want to make you think, definitely check out In This Corner of the World. I absolutely adored that film. In This Corner of the World. You heard it from Brandon Miracle, everybody.
Yeah, man, anime film, watching it.
Yeah, I you know, obviously I haven't watched the film, but you mentioning this and talking about it, I really like any sort of film that deals with that sort of era. I think it'd be really interesting to have, like, kind of grown up then. For me, I know my late grandfather was involved to some degree in World War II, and not like I'm American and stuff like that. He was Ukrainian and he lived over there, so he had to deal with a lot of that firsthand. And so I'm really fascinated with that time period. So to see it in that kind of light, I'm very interested in that. So I think that'll go on my list for this next week. If I watch anything, it's going to be Spider-Man and then that film. So
I'm glad you brought that up. But first, I'm also I'm also very fascinated by movies of that era, and I think the appealing thing about a movie like that is that we have the perspective of being Americans. So that's the only, like, in school, that's the perspective we get. And so it's nice to be able to kind of experience this event in history from other perspectives and kind of change our viewpoint of it. So I'm very fascinated to sit down and watch this movie as well.
Yeah.
I would, like I said before, I'd highly advise that you watch this as a set with Grave of the Fireflies. For those of you who don't know, Grave of the Fireflies, I believe, is a Studio Ghibli movie. It's one of their earlier films.
Have someone on hand to give you a hug after that one. In particular.
Yes.
I can't speak of the other one. But.
I mean, given the subject matter, that's probably a given. But they can be a little traumatic. So, you have to prepare yourself because
have someone to give you a hug.
Yeah, pretty much. So outside of In This Corner of the World, I also started watching Final Space, which is created by Olin Rogers, who, for those of you on YouTube, know as a comedian who's been on YouTube for a long time. Paul and I actually got the opportunity to meet Olin Rogers at one of his comedy shows. Was that over a year ago now?
That was, I think, it was winter.
2 Novembers ago, I think. 2 or 3 Novembers ago. It was recent, at least. But by that point, he had already announced that Final Space was a thing. It's a team effort between him and TBS. He's written the show. He also voices the main character of Greg. I think it's Greg.
Oh, let's put it away.
It's a 10-episode series. They've been releasing the episodes online a week ahead of their air date on TBS.
Really?
Yeah. So episode 4 aired this week, but we were able to watch episode 5 on demand. There's Paul's Olin Rogers signature in the video version for those of you watching. I wasn't really sure what to expect going into this, to be honest. I respect Olin Rogers a lot as a creator. I find his style of humor incredibly engaging. He's a very loud, very quick person, really good storyteller. So I wasn't sure what to make of this. Well, after watching the first episode, I was already 150% on board. Final Space is about a guy. I want to say his name is Greg. I really hope I'm right about that. What? Gary. It's Gary. She could be wrong too. You're making a lot of noise over there, by the way.
It's Gary.
Is it Gary? Okay. So he's been
Gary Bisbee.
Fact check arcade.
Basically. So he's been in prison for 5 years for doing something incredibly stupid on planet Earth that I'll just let you guys figure out when you watch the show. But basically, he's been banished to space. He's just on this spaceship for 5 years, and that's his entire life. So he's got these robots that kind of wait on him, but are also kind of jerks. There's a robot, Paul, you'll love this. There's a robot named Kevin who's just a jerk. Oh. He's a jerk, and his name's Kevin. So, like, that's something that Paul and I have kind of lived by. What's that, Logan?
Interjection. Okay, so obviously I knew the show because of Olin Rogers and how much you guys were a fan of Olin Rogers. I've seen a little bit of Olin Rogers stuff. I've never been a huge fan. But goodness gracious, this voice cast is, like, incredible. Like, incredible. So obviously you have Olin Rogers, Fred Armisen, Tom Kenny, David Tennant, and then I think one of my favorites on this is John DiMaggio.
Isn't Conan O'Brien also in it?
Also, yes, for those of you out there, if your name Kevin, we don't assume you're a jerk. It's just a thing we do. We love you.
But any character that John DiMaggio plays is probably a jerk. At least that's what I assume. Actually, that's not true.
John DiMaggio, if you're listening out there, we don't think you're a jerk. We think you play jerks.
But specifically, he plays Bender, so I think that makes me even more excited to actually watch this. Anyway, continue.
So, as I said, he's been a prisoner on this ship for 5 years for a stupid thing he did on planet Earth. He's waited on by robots. There's a robot who's a jerk. And then there's this Jarvis-like character named Hugh, who kind of sasses him. Like, whenever Gary says stuff to him, Hugh will just kind of, kind of blow him off and say something kind of insulting. It's a really funny dynamic. And the character of Gary is literally Olin Rogers. Just like his entire personality in his videos, that's the character of Gary, and I absolutely love it.
Olin Rogers in space. I love it.
He talks really fast. He's got like this really huge imagination. He kind of lives in his own world when he's talking. It's fantastic. So the thing that surprised me the most about this is the way it opens. So the very beginning of the first episode, you see Gary floating in space with a bunch of dead bodies, destroyed ship parts, and there's air coming out of his suit. And Hugh tells him that, I think he says he has 10 minutes left to live. And there's a very short dialogue between him and Hugh, and then we go back to the past to where the beginning of the series takes place. So they're kind of setting up to some kind of dramatic event that's going to take place at the end of the show, and that's the thing I kind of want to focus on here, is that there's a really exciting story, just like backing all of, you know, the comedy and all the humor and all the silliness. There's an actual plot taking place, and it's going to conclude in 10 episodes, so that's really exciting. In Gary's kind of, in the first episode, Gary comes across an alien who he names Mooncake. Mooncake is a green blob with 2 tiny antennas and 2 like little balls for arms or feet or whatever they are, and he's just really adorable. And he has this really weird voice. He just goes ooh and stuff like that. You know, it's like really deep, not like high pitched and squeaky like you'd imagine it would be. And this kind of ends up being Gary's like first real friend out in space, because he doesn't have anybody to talk to. So he really latches on to Mooncake, and this relationship is kind of the cornerstone of the series. It's Gary and Mooncake. Olin Rogers did an interview that they play segments of after every episode, and very quickly he said that the relationship between Gary and Mooncake is meant to represent a space version of a man and his dog. So that's kind of the setup for the series. There's a villain they're setting up in the background. We don't know a lot about him yet. All we know is that he's trying to achieve final space. We don't know what final space is yet, but that's the end goal, hence the name of the series. It has beautiful, beautiful digital art, but it has like a 3-dimensional depth to it in certain scenes with the way light casts on the characters. It's very, very pretty. You can definitely tell that the production values are very high. Like you said, Logan, the voice cast is incredible. They are all doing fantastic right now. I can't wait to see where this series goes. And I implore you to get on board, because it's great. I can't praise it enough. It's on TBS.
And if you don't have TBS?
It's on TBS.
Dang it. I dreamed.
Well, if you get like a account with like Hulu TV, or you do PS View for free, you will get that channel, and then you can watch it on demand for free. So wait till the series is over, and then all the episodes will be on there. You can watch it with a free trial.
Okay, that's probably what I'll end up doing.
You might be able to watch them through TBS's website. I don't know for sure. But
I'll look into it.
That's Final Space. I love it, and you should watch it.
Olin's a beautiful man, so of course.
I'm a sucker for animated sci-fi. You know, I've said it before on the podcast. One of my favorite shows of all time is Futurama. So any sort of more adult-oriented animated sci-fi, I am like. It's funny that I wasn't more excited to watch Final Space, but now looking at this cast,
go online and watch the trailer. The trailer's incredible.
It's funny because I've seen the trailer. And outside of that, I wasn't like, maybe I was just busy with other things. I don't always know where my mind is at, you know. But I know where it's at now, and I definitely want to watch this.
So there's one more thing I've been doing on television recently, and I don't know whether I'm proud of it or if I'm just accepting that I'm growing up, but I've been watching a lot of Food Network, specifically shows with Guy Fieri in him. So I've been to Flavor Town for like the last week.
How much have you cooked?
I haven't cooked at all. That's the thing. I've just been watching Guy.
That's definitely an adult thing then, because all adults watch like food, like cooking shows, and then never make any of the things that they see in the cooking shows.
Well, I watch more like the competition shows, not the this is how you make stuff shows. So I've been watching Chopped. I've always liked Chopped just because, you know, it's an hour long. You get to watch people make food on the fly. It's kind of cool. But I've also been watching Guys Grocery Games. And if you don't know what that is, it takes place in a grocery store. You're given a challenge, and then Guy sends you off with a grocery cart, and you're given a budget. You have to buy the items you need off the store shelves with the budget you're given. And in the same time limit, you have to cook your meal and present it to the judges. It's fun.
That's pretty interesting.
It's silly. Yeah, it's a really neat concept. It's a nice change or twist on the kind of food competition genre, which is like kind of saturated right now. I watch an anime about cooking competitions. I'm pretty into this stuff, apparently. But yeah, that's just me with Guy Fieri in Flavortown. That's probably going to keep happening for a while, I imagine.
Hell yeah, man.
Logan, you didn't watch any movies or TV this week. Paul, what are you up to?
So, like I was talking about last week, I was watching Love Season 3. I finished Love Season 3 the night after the podcast. And without going too deeply into it, because I think, Logan, you were eventually going to sit down and watch it.
Yes, sir.
Season 3 apparently is the end of the series, and in the context of like it being the end, I'm okay with how they ended it. It makes sense to me, and what I need to have resolved got resolved. But there were still a handful of things that like I wanted to see them explore in more context, more of the problems that they were having, that they didn't bring to the surface. It was just kind of things that were kind of swept away that they never really went back to.
Do we know if this is like a kind of a Hannibal situation where they were kind of like forced into ending it through cancellation?
I haven't really read into it, so I'm not entirely sure, unfortunately.
Okay.
Want to say that the show is doing okay, so I'm not entirely... It came as a shock to me that they even canceled it.
Right.
But, I mean... If that was the last season that they were going to get, they did a good job.
Okay.
And so beyond that, I sat down and I watched Spider-Man Homecoming again.
Something Logan wants to do next week.
Do it, and we'll talk more about it then. It's still a delightful movie. I have to have a quick tangent here to talk about how much I love Tom Holland as Spider-Man.
Do it.
Like, from the first like few moments he had on screen in Civil War, like he is just so fun on screen, just such quick wit and just always goofing, and I love him so much. And it continues on into Spider-Man Homecoming. This is a Spider-Man full of shenanigans, and I enjoy it so thoroughly.
This might...
Logan, I look forward to you seeing this.
This might be kind of a shallow thing, but one of the things I like most about Tom Holland's Spider-Man is that he's short. He looks like he's young. Exactly.
Right, and most of the depictions I've ever seen of Spider-Man is when he's I'm still in high school, and like he looks the part.
Yeah. So that plays into it well. And I should also mention that I really love the suit design. It looks very good, like in the world of the MCU, just like set on the backdrop of the real world. It feels right. So I appreciate that a lot for it.
It's not that I don't like the other two renditions of Spider-Man, because they were good in their own ways and memorable for me in their own ways, but I feel like they've definitely gotten closer each time to comic book Spider-Man, the Spider-Man we experienced in other media growing up.
Oh, yeah.
So Spider-Man Homecoming is just a very, very enjoyable take on Spider-Man.
It even looks to me like the MCU is kind of setting up Spider-Man to be kind of a front man. I'm getting those vibes just from watching the Infinity War trailer.
I'm okay with that.
I guess...
Yeah, I wonder how they're going to handle the MCU, like, moving forward, like... What characters are they going to retire?
I was actually going to mention that. Chris Evans has said that Avengers 4 will be his last movie. Or he plans on it being his last movie. this is not something that's set in stone. This is just something that I understand that he wants. And we've known for a while that Chris Evans wasn't like 150% committed to the MCU, at least not in the early days. I think as he saw how successful they were and they weren't Fantastic Four, I think he was on board. So I was happy for Chris Evans just because he's been in a lot of bad movies, and it doesn't have anything to do with him as an actor. It's just like a bad role. Like
maybe Ben Affleck will have his day too.
He got a 1 on the D20. Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, I anticipate. I personally think we're getting a clean slate going forward. Like all these secondary characters that we get, like all these sidekicks to the main heroes, are going to become the main heroes, and the main heroes are going to retire. That's my anticipation. I think they're just going to take a back seat and maybe be mentors to the new players, but the new players to be the front man.
I'd kind of like to see, I know, like, I don't know if it was necessarily a reboot with the comics, but they had, like, they introduced new versions of the main heroes and made, like, these heroes we grew up with, we know we love, and they made them a little bit more diverse. And I'd like to see them maybe play with that, but also kind of do like they've done in Phase 3 and give focus to a lot of other heroes that we might not have seen as much of growing up.
They can kind of do whatever they want, because, you know, Thanos, when he's got his Infinity Gauntlet all set up with the Infinity Stones, essentially he can kind of just rewrite history, as I understand it. So there's a chance like everything could change. I don't think that they're going to do that necessarily, but there's a possibility for it. Any other movies or TV this week, Paul?
I think that was it. Love and Spider-Man. That sounds like a Jane Austen superhero movie. Love and Spider-Man.
So without getting into spoilers about Dragon Ball Super, there was a really amazing piece of news that came out for Dragon Ball Super, and that was the release of the movie teaser for Dragon Ball Super, the movie. Not Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Super, the movie. I think that's a signal that we're about to enter a brand new era of Dragon Ball, and I'm incredibly excited. The trailer features brand new art direction and very like
it looks good,
flowy animation. Yeah, it looks incredible. I can't wait to see what the battles are going to look like in this movie. I'm so excited. They also mentioned that they're aiming for worldwide release. So
that's the best news of all of it.
It's coming out on December 14th in Japan in theaters, and there is a good possibility we'll also be at the theaters here in North America to go see the movie on December 14th.
Can we get it dubbed?
Please.
I feel like if we're going to get it dubbed, like, Super would have to be dubbed all the way through and released, you know? So I don't know how tightly Funimation is holding on to the dub.
Funimation
but I mean,
is not above dubbing things that are beyond the point they're at in the anime. They used to be, but now we've got like the Dragon Ball games coming out, or like Xenoverse 2 is getting a bunch of DLC for characters that have not appeared in the dub yet, that are in the arc that we're currently in, and they've already have their voices established. So I don't think they're above dubbing the movie despite not being there yet.
Right. Well, I mean, and who knows how much they have dubbed of the series, and they're just trickling out because they can, you know.
Oh, yeah, that's true as well.
So I mean,
I think
I'm kind of hoping that they just drop everything all at once.
That would be nice. I don't know if they'll do that because it's bringing in tons of numbers for Toonami on television.
Right.
But I believe Funimation has faith in their fan base, that the people who are going out to see the movie already understand that this takes place after Super. Because Super is available to watch subbed on Funimation Now service anyway.
Right.
I'm wondering, like, in past, I know when we were kids, like, we were able to go to, like, Walmart, and they'd have VHS tapes for Dragon Ball Z. We knew what VHS tapes were. And they would be, like, beyond where Toonami was airing. This was, like, I think during, like, the Buu Saga in particular, I was able to get very, like, late in that fight on VHS tape, way before Toonami even aired those episodes, and so I could see them in preparation for this movie, like maybe releasing the home media ahead of time and then still airing it on Toonami.
I got the end of GT like well before that series ended on Toonami as well. The difference, though, I think between then and now is the state of the internet.
That's very true.
So, like in the case of Dragon Ball Z Kai, the final chapters, you know, they dumped all those episodes ahead of the Toonami airing. But what happened with those episodes is that they were leaked on the internet and available to watch on other websites. And I guess it just depends on what Funimation wants to do. If they're okay with that happening, then yeah, they'll release them on home media. If they're not okay with that happening, we're gonna have to wait.
For those of you at home, please support the official release. If you don't, you know why we can't have nice things.
I remember, like, even like in the middle school, early high school days for us, the anime industry was kind of on its last legs here in North America. Things were just not going well for it. Ever since the relaunch of Toonami, anime's blown up. The fact that this movie is coming out in North America on December 14th in the first place is because of this resurgence of anime.
It makes me so happy.
Oh, yeah. I remember, like, we waited over a year for Battle of Gods to come to North American theaters. And by that point, I had already seen it at least 3 times subbed, and I went to see it dubbed in theaters twice. Resurrection F, we got 3 months after it premiered in Japan in theaters, and we got it dubbed. So obviously things have been improved. I remember when we saw Resurrection F, I think the theater sold out.
It wouldn't surprise me. That theater was packed. I actually just food for thought here. I'm gonna guess that a lot of that has to do with platforms like Crunchyroll rising up. Yeah, you can pirate movies all you want, but having a platform like Netflix where you can watch a lot of content with, you know, technically you're supporting creators, it's a low monthly cost. It encouraged me to kind of stop finding movies elsewhere. Not that I ever would, ever. But, you know, same thing with Spotify and music. You know, if I can pay, you know, $5 as a student and have access to all this music that I'd want, you know, I'm going to do that rather than, you know, risk getting a virus downloading it from a questionable website. And so I think it's a lot of the same thing with anime. Like, now that I have Crunchyroll and I can pay, yeah, I use Verve instead, but like it's still $10 a month and I have all the dubs and subs that I could really want. You know, I'm not going to other sources to find this content. I'm making the effort to support the creators. And it might be a smaller way, but at least I'm doing it in a, you know, the right way.
And I think I don't think that model would work if it weren't for the fact that Crunchyroll is offering a very good proposition with their service as well. You get anime 1 hour after they air in Japan, completely subbed in 1080p HD. That's incredible. I mean, they're
scouring the internet as soon as the episode drops.
Exactly, they're getting it out faster than these translators are, who, you know, rip them and put them online. It's a professionally done sub. So I remember the early days of watching Dragon Ball Super when it wasn't available on Crunchyroll, and I was watching it hours after it aired in Japan with just the absolute worst subtitles, just broken English. Not even like complete sentences. It was terrible. And then Crunchyroll announced its support for Dragon Ball Super, and I signed up that day. I was like, yep, now I'm here. I'm ready. Because
Crunchyroll, you're doing great work.
Exactly. I mean, other than Crunchyroll breaking down every time an episode of Super comes out,
you can only do so much.
You can only do so much. It's kind of exciting to me that happens. That means there's a lot of buzz behind Dragon Ball Super. But regardless, people are
going to show up to that theater on December 14th.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, the internet is ablaze right now about this movie. There's a YouTube channel I've recently started watching called Anime AJ, and he does like animation and staff breakdowns for every episode of Super, just like really getting into the production side of things. And I've really like gotten into that. And he's been talking a lot about the staff and the people who are involved in the Dragon Ball Super film, and they're like people at the top of the industry who are working on this movie. There's a kid.
Oh, that's super cool.
There's a guy who's on the film right now who got his his start in anime and animating at the age of 16, and he's working on this movie. There was like a couple like really high profile anime that some of the people working on it are involved with now. Some of the people involved with like One Piece Film Z. and One Piece film Gold, and the production values of those films are incredibly high. So I can't wait to see that translated into Dragon Ball Super, the movie. As you can tell, I'm very excited. I just want it now.
Yeah. So really quick tangent, just like we live in one of the most incredible times in like human history. The speed at which we can communicate across borders, across the entire world, is just something that I imagine that people thought was impossible in the past. So that's why we see something like a Japanese medium like anime that is gaining so much ground in Western culture, is because it's easier to access than ever. And then people are so connected that they see other cultures, and they're not, not everybody, but most people nowadays, they're not so xenophobic. They're not afraid of these other cultures or what those other cultures are like. And so now we're just digesting all this stuff because it's so easy for somebody across the world to produce something and then have it available to literally anybody who has an internet connection. And now I'm pretty sure the vast majority of people on this earth have access to internet at this point, and that's only going to continue to grow. Like, it's absolutely incredible. This is what I think of when I get excited about the idea of a global culture. And that's exactly what's happening. Is like the past 10, 15 years, that's slowly been building, even a little bit further back than that. But it's in a relatively short amount of time that our world is just entirely different than it was. The internet is the greatest invention in history.
I don't think you can refute that.
2018.
Yeah.
Globalization is only going to speed up at an exponential rate as technology advances.
Speaking of being able to communicate faster, on last week's podcast, shout out to Dalton, was talking to us about Black Clover. And this week, I decided to take up his recommendation and start watching Black Clover. I'm sorry, Dalton, I don't particularly enjoy Black Clover. It's not that it's a bad anime, and it's something that I'm going to follow through with it. I'm going to watch from beginning to end and then make my ultimate judgment. It's just so far it's a shonen anime. You have the hero, names are my weakness, so I can't remember his name. But in a world that's built on your magical power, that sounds right. I've been kind of watching it passively while I'm trying to fall asleep. But you have this main character in a world that's controlled by magic, and how much magical power you possess really kind of determines your rank in their society. You have this kid who doesn't have any magical power, and somehow they get these grimoires on their 15th, not their 15th birthday, but when they're 15 years old, they can go and get a grimoire, and it will increase their magical ability. And so, surprise, surprise, at the ceremony, he doesn't get a grimoire. Following the event, his friend's in trouble, who is granted this very prominent grimoire that was held by the Wizard King of the world, who's the best wizard. He's the Hokage of wizards.
I was about to say, you're just telling me the plot of Naruto right now.
Yeah. He's granted a grimoire from what I can tell, it doesn't give him any really magical power, but it gives him a sword that kind of repels magic. And so this kid is a lot like Naruto, because this is a shonen anime, and Naruto's also shonen, and every other shonen I've ever seen is like this. He has to work a lot harder because he doesn't have magical power. But
I'd say Dragon Ball is probably the exception to that.
Yeah, he's slowly finding his way up in this world without magical power. He's finding his own Nindo way.
He's Rock Lee.
Yeah, that's actually a really good comparison. I'm still excited to see where this goes and see how it kind of sets itself apart from other ones. In terms of tone, it reminds me of like the little bit I've seen of Fairy Tail mixed with Attack on Titan. But yeah, we'll come back to this later.
The bad anime train.
Oh, and then the last thought I have on that is I think you mentioned last week when it was brought up that you've heard the main character shouts a lot.
Yeah.
I don't think he has a tone of voice that isn't shouting.
That would get old very quickly.
Wait, who is... That reminds me of freaking Evangelion. Shinji.
Yeah.
But why would you do that? I don't want to get in the robot.
Get in the robot, Shinji.
I feel like they are kind of self-aware of the fact that he's always shouting because everybody always tells him to quit shouting.
My gosh. Any other anime from you, Paul?
Nope.
Because I got one
it
more.
was Super and Black Clover.
I watched 2 episodes of Kirby Right Back at You. Because, you know, I grew up on the Kirby anime when it was on the Fox box when I was much younger. And I was like, it's been a long time since I've seen this. My interest in Kirby is kind of peaked right now because I've been playing Kirby Star Allies. So I was like, oh, you know what? I'll just watch some episodes of Kirby Right Back at You. And then I remembered it was dubbed by 4Kids. There are some good things about the dub.
Most importantly, how's Kirby's dub? How's Kirby the character Kirby dubbed?
He says "Poyo" a lot. You know, it's a very convincing delivery, if you ask me. In real talk though, like they do the same thing that they did with Pokemon, where Pikachu retained his Japanese voice actress in the English dub, and they did that again here with Kirby, where Kirby's original Japanese voice was retained in the English dub, because there's really no point in changing that because Kirby doesn't speak English anyway.
Yeah, they don't really say real words. So
there's 2 characters that really come to mind when I watch this show. It's kind of shonen-y, but it's more like a Saturday morning cartoon. So King DDD and his companion Escargoon, who is a snail named Escargoon. King DDD's voice, like, seeing this as a kid really shaped my perception of this character, and I didn't realize it until watching this yesterday. Because King DDD has never really had a voice in the video games. He's all like, ruff, 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 you know, and just like these growls. In the anime, it's hey, I'm King DDD. Like this growly voice. Like, I don't even really know what kind of accent it is, but it's like, I'm gonna get that, Kirby. This is like the swing to the way he speaks. And he's almost mob bossy. I've always
I can see that.
Exactly. Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like this is how I perceive King DDD because of this show. He's a jerk. He wants to get that Kirby, and he's like really full of himself and he talks like a mobster for some reason. And then you got Escargoon, who I love because he talks like this all the time. I'm gonna get you, Kirby, for my King DDD. I remember like King DDD and Escargoon were gonna get some dinner or something, and King DDD, oh yeah, they were at Chef Kawasaki's restaurant, and Kirby was serving food to the people because Kirby needed a job because Kirby didn't have anywhere to live. So Kirby was serving the people at Chef Kawasaki's restaurant, and King DDD and Escargoon show up. They don't like Kirby. So they were trying to mess with him as he was like delivering food to tables. So they were like knocking him over, making him fall into tables, drop food and all that. Eventually Kirby gets fired because of this. But King DDD, he ordered the escargot, and Escargoon didn't take too kindly to that. It's full of 4Kids, just bad puns, just slapstick comedy jokes. On the one hand, it's awful. Just Meta Knight is Spanish for some reason, but I really love it.
Let me ask you, if they had the opportunity to go back and have Funimation redub it, Would you rather see them try it, or would you want the 4 kids?
I want Funimation to try it because there's a couple characters that are really high-pitched squealy, and they don't need to be, and it's really annoying. Particularly, there's these 2 kids who are like companions to Kirby. They live in the castle with King Dedede because they come from a very high like value royal family, and their voices are just ear-wrenching. I can't handle them. The funny thing about that, Paul, is that Funimation currently owns the rights to Kirby Right Back At You, so they could potentially redub the anime. It's 100 episodes.
Well, let me ask you, what about that F-Zero anime they had?
I don't know who owns the rights to that, but only 13 episodes of that have actually got dubbed. So they didn't even finish it. That's why there's no English version of the incredible like finale scene with Captain Falcon versus Black Shadow at the end of the anime.
We need to get that dubbed. Someone needs to get on top of that.
Please?
Nintendo, please get us some anime with your intellectual properties. Please.
It's kind of interesting going back and seeing these anime based on Nintendo's properties back in a time where that was something that they were very against. But, you know, Kirby and F-Zero, they were fine. Someone in the chat wants to know why Michael Cera is here. I don't know. Anyway, if Funimation wants to redub the Kirby anime, I'd be okay with that. I really just want someone to release it, because there's really no home media collection version available right now. So, Kirby Right Back At You. It's silly, it's stupid, but I love it. So,
one day.
Logan, have you been watching any anime this week?
I watched another episode of Naruto, but again, I've been busy trying to get other parts of my life a little more in order than they usually are. So I watched another episode of Naruto, but it felt like a pretty significant episode of Naruto just based on the fact that I saw a symbol that I see a lot from Naruto, but I hadn't seen it in the show this far. It was the symbol in
Sharingan.
their sensei's eye. Yeah, it was like a jutsu or something like that, right?
It is an ability, yeah.
Yeah. So is that what jutsu means? It's just ability?
It's a technique, yeah.
Okay.
It's an application of their Katra.
Their Katra.
Okay. So that was a pretty cool and pretty awesome episode.
Is he fighting Zabuza?
That's all I really have to say.
I think that's what it is.
I don't know. I don't remember half their names. I know
the first time
Naruto. I know Sasuke. That's it.
If it's the first time
That's all I remember.
Sharingan, probably that first time he's fighting Zabuza.
The pink-haired girl, her name is Sakura, and you won't care about her for a while, probably.
You won't ever care about. Well,
I would argue against that, Paul.
She was there for. She had a moment of. She had one glorified moment towards the end there, and that was it. And it was quickly overshadowed. So. I will fight you on that.
There's one pretty close to the middle of Naruto.
I guess I'll have to watch a few episodes this weekend and also catch up on the Dragon Ball Super dub. Because again, I was pretty busy this week, and so I slept a lot and didn't get enough sleep. So I think I'll sleep tonight.
The chat says that Sakura is as useful as a raisin in the sun.
The chat gets me.
So moving into
I think
into video games.
I did some gaming.
There was a pretty significant thing that happened to Monster Hunter. You might have heard about it. Deviljho, the Pickle Boy, returns.
Pickle Boy! Pickle Boy! Pickle Boy!
So the funny thing about that
is
the night that Deviljho came out, and Deviljho is a monster who debuted in Monster Hunter Tries, beloved amongst fans. He's a very powerful monster. He looks like a pickle. On top of that, so the day that Deviljho came out, I was supposed to work on my Kirby review. Well, I heard that the boys were getting online to fight some Joe, and I had just finished recording the audio portion of my review, and I said, nope, can't handle this, and I went downstairs, turned on my PS4, and I got in the party chat. And I fought some Pickle Boy.
It feels so good to have a new monster in the game. It feels so good. And especially that it's Deviljho. he's so notorious, and it's such a good hunt. I went ahead, like I hopped in before Brandon. I was like, oh, I'm gonna use this as an excuse to stream, you know, which I think, you know, hopefully we'll get into the habit of doing pretty weekly. Probably doing a lot of Monster Hunter. But we got in, and the first thing we had to do is frickin' find Deviljho. We had to go on a quest or an expedition and actually locate him. And so we finally figured out how that worked, and we all located him and unlocked that quest. And the first thing I did is I found him, and I just started hunting him. And at a certain point, because it was in an expedition, at a certain point, it was like, Deviljho's going to leave the locale. And I was like, I am not okay with this. I am not okay with this. I've been hunting you for like 10, 15 minutes already, and I'm going to take you down, which I did. I captured him, and I was like, I am the master hunter.
What I'm trying to figure out is, I thought Deviljho always found you.
No, not really anymore. Deviljho,
I guess I'm kind of okay with that.
Deviljho appeared at, like 1 out of 25 expeditions for me. So I'd go out on an expedition, look at the map, see where he'd appear, and it took until like the 5th or 6th try for him to actually even show up on the map at all.
I mean, I guess Beetlejuice kind of took over for that.
Speaking of that, we witnessed a glorious event. So Basil Boy came down right on Deviljho, and Deviljho wasn't having that. So they got into a little bit of a scrap. They got into a little bit of a turf war, and we got to watch the two annoying boys fight, and it was glorious.
It was so beautiful.
I'm happy to report that the Pickle Boy won. Pickle Boy fans unite.
Oh.
I mean, he didn't win without Basil Juice actually getting some damage in on him, which was also cool.
Of course.
Good.
So I got some things about Deviljho I got to throw out there, and I shouldn't be surprised. But also, Beetlejuice is the only good Naruto character, says the chat. I was excited for Deviljho, and then I beat him in 10 minutes. Where's the hype?
I feel like it would have been a different experience had they introduced him sooner.
Well, that's
he's probably on a similar level as Beetlejuice.
That's the center of my rant, though. Is
oh well. Sorry.
The problem with DLC and Monster Hunter is that in the case of the three of us, we're endgame already. So when they introduce a new monster, there's really nothing to be all that excited about because we're going to destroy it, and it's not going to take a lot of effort.
Yeah.
That being said,
it makes me.
What's that?
I was gonna say it makes me hope for G rank. You know, in the relatively near future.
That
ultra tempered.
Well, that's the thing, Paul. Is like there's still a tempered version of Deviljho out there, and once we get to that, it'll probably be a more exciting hunt. We also don't have Savage Deviljho, which was available as a G rank monster. So just kind of like the feelings and emotions I have towards Deviljho were significantly lowered after I beat him without much effort. So I hope to fight that tempered version soon and maybe have a different opinion about the whole thing. But as of right now, I was actually kind of disappointed. I got a gem on my second hunt, so that took a lot of the suspense out of hunting Deviljho over and over again.
Hey Capcom, make Deviljho harder for us, please.
Make a lot of things harder, please. Hello in the chat. I do think it was cool though the way they framed the whole thing is, you know, like Logan said, we had to stumble across Deviljho on an expedition first, pick up on some Drax, get that research level high enough, and then we were presented with an actual story quest that we had to complete. So that was kind of cool. And then after we beat the story quest, we unlocked an optional quest also featuring Deviljho, which was cool, which resulted in us getting a new mantle. So that's kind of cool, you know, framing these quests around story missions and then doing optional quests afterwards that give us kind of a meaningful reward. That's neat, and I'd like to see them keep doing that. So that's cool.
If we're lucky, hopefully when they get around to Alatreon, it'll be as hard as it was in the original try.
Oh, please. I mean, you know, our perspective on Alatreon might be a little warped, too, because Alatreon was our first final boss for a Monster Hunter. But like even like in 4 Ultimate, like the Fatalis, he was hard, and we were like way end game in 4 Ultimate. So it's not like they can't be difficult. I know they can be. I just need a little bit more.
I remember in 4U, I want to say, or maybe it was 3U. I remember you had to fight Elatrion as like one of the very end story quests, and even 3U was a lot easier than just Try originally. But I still struggled with that Elatrion quest being end game, having that overpowered like dual swords, because I think that game was kind of balanced in my favor. But even with all that, it still took me the entire fight, and in a lot of cases, I didn't beat him.
I remember it took me a couple tries too. Then again, I beat Elatrion on my 3DS during a train ride in Monster Hunter Tri Ultimate. So I actually don't remember it that well. But, you know, this was something I was afraid of with Monster Hunter World kind of going into this game, is that a lot of the changes they were making were going to make this too easy. The tempered monsters kind of subvert that issue, but there's certain monsters I kind of hold in a high regard in my head, and I'd like them to stay that way.
Well, I would argue also that, I mean, we're getting the first version of this game. The vast majority of the time, we get the ultimate version, so we get G rank included. And obviously, I didn't play the original Try, so I can't really speak to.
Well, Try didn't even have a G rank version. I mean, we got Try, and then we got Try Ultimate. But
right.
I think Try was released without the intention of a G rank, because the high rank in the original Try was pretty difficult.
Right.
A lot of the things that they save for G rank, when a monster goes into rage mode in G rank, their overall speed actually increases by quite a percentage, just like the speed that they move. And that was present in a high rank in Monster Hunter Try, but not in the high rank of any other game that I've played so far. But it is in G rank.
Well, I want to say too that even it might just be because it was our first Monster Hunter game, but I feel like low rank was incredibly difficult too.
I'd probably attribute that to being our first game.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to people who are playing Monster Hunter World, and they struggle with the low rank. And obviously, when you know what you're doing in the game, and you kind of understand the weapons and understand the systems, then it's pretty easy to deal with low rank. Especially once you get to all the high rank stuff and you go back to low rank.
You also have to remember in Monster Hunter Try, the way that you ranked up worked a lot differently than it does now. So in Monster Hunter Try, you had to achieve a certain number of Hunter rank points. And once you've achieved that number of Hunter rank points, as long as you've completed all the key quests, the urgent quest would unlock. You've beat the urgent quest, you go up to the next Hunter rank. And you had to do that several times in low rank just to get to high rank, and then several times again in high rank to get to the final boss. So that was a way that they just added hours to the game, just because you couldn't do key quests and then immediately go up. There was a wait period in between where you had to keep doing quests and getting that number up. I like this system that they use a lot more right now, because there's a lot less just kind of time wasted, I guess. I think in Try, I built every single armor set in the game, and that was probably because I had so much extra time in between ranking up to do so. But alas, you know, I'm glad that Monster Hunter World is going in the direction that it has. This is infinitely better than any Monster Hunter they've released up till now. So, you know, it's going to take time for them to kind of, like, strike that balance for old players and new players. And I look forward to seeing what they come out with next. Maybe the G rank expansion is what I need. And if that's the case, then cool. I'm okay with that. If they want to charge me $30 for it, I'm going to pay for it, because I love Monster Hunter.
Oh, yeah.
I've more than doubled my per hour or dollar per hour ratio on the game already, so.
Yeah, I mean, how many hours are you into Monster Hunter World?
I think I'm between like 130 and 150. I can't remember exactly.
Okay.
It might be over that.
Yeah.
No, it's 166. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm like just under 170 at this point.
I haven't broken 100 yet.
Wow, Paul.
You better get on that, Paul!
You've been playing some other video games, though.
That I have. This week I hopped on Rocket League again, and I played some more Rocket League.
I hopped on Rocket League, and I played some Rocket League.
Yeah. I think at some point, hopefully we can all jump on there and play together. Right now there's an event going on for like spring, and you can get these points that you can use to redeem for special skins and kind of exclusive content. And so I made a little bit of progress with that. The only real story to report is I joined a match, and the other team was sitting still. All of them were either away from keyboard, or I think at the end I saw one of them hop, and so I think they were messing with us. But I come in, and my two teammates are just scoring goals on them, and I think it's like 8-0. And so I quickly score a goal on them too, and then that's how I realized the situation. And so I made a decision. I'm not going to let this stand. I'm going to score a goal on ourselves and give them a point. And so it took me, I came in like a minute in. It took me 2 minutes to score a goal. And after I did that, I inspired one of the other teammates to do the same. And so in the time that I was trying to do it, it was 1-on-2. So me against them. And then after that, I went back just trying to get extra goals and get my rank up and whatnot. And so it was again him versus us.
I love kind of like that silent agreement in online games without chat, or like when you're not chatting and your teammate just knows what you want them to do. It's so fun.
It was honestly like such a hilarious situation to just kind of stumble into. And then after we got done, we all kind of went on our separate ways. And like I said, I think I saw one of them hop, so I'm pretty sure they were just messing with us. And I don't know what they were getting out of it. I don't care, because I got a fun story out of it. It's the time I scored a goal on myself intentionally.
It's good sportsmanship.
Yeah. I felt like they needed something, so I was there to kind of even the odds for them.
Give them a little handicap.
Yeah.
So what else you got?
So I had previously put about 70 hours into Persona 5. About the time that came out, I heard a lot of friends talking about it. I spent a car ride where I was driving everybody to, I think, Schaumburg, and I spent the whole ride there hearing about Persona 5. And I hadn't heard much about it before then, so I decided to pick up this game because, it was just described to me as, it's anime, the video game. And I wanted to experience that.
Pretty much.
So I bought it, I fell in love with it, I got 70 hours into it, and then I spontaneously stopped. This was about like 5 months ago, I think. Well, this weekend I decided I'm picking this up and I am finishing it. Spoiler alert, I didn't finish it. I put about another 15-20 hours into it, and I believe I'm on the last palace of this game. Logan, do you know anything about Persona 5? Brandon, I know you played the first palace. So in Persona 5, you play as the protagonist that you name yourself. Mine's name is Kosuke. You play as Kosuke, and he gets sent to another town to stay with this complete stranger after an incident where he...
I think mine's named Kosuke too, by the way.
I thought you named yours Daisuke, and so I went with Kosuke.
I don't think so. I'll have to check, because now I'm not sure. Keep going.
He gets into trouble with the law, and so he gets sent away to a different town to start at a new school. He's living with a guy who he doesn't know, and it kind of rolls out as anime. On his first day of school, he kind of gets derailed when he meets this other kid, Ryuji, and he discovers this like mysterious app on his phone, and they don't see the effects of it right away, but it transports them to this world called the Metaverse. And it's basically everything's the same, but in the Metaverse, a character's perverted desires or distorted desires become reality. And so there's a teacher at the school that just kind of sees it as his own kingdom, and he's the ruler.
Kamoshida.
And all the students are kind of his slaves or his subjects, and they're just there to serve him. And so in this castle level, his palace, basically the way this is structured is you go after a bunch of these people with distorted desires. I'm sorry, I can't speak. And you change their hearts. You find the center of their castle where they're hiding their treasure, which is the thing that led their desires to become distorted in the first place. And your phantom thieves, you steal this item that caused them to lose sight of themselves, to distort their desires, and ultimately giving them a change of heart. And so it's kind of, they're trying to make a difference in their world by going after these different people and trying to change their hearts. And it's a very interesting story, and it is for a very long time. My problem that I ran into the first time around is I just got to a point where I had like 10 hours worth of exposition when I came back to this game, that I was basically just sitting there deciding what I'd do each day while I wait for the next palace. And so I finally pushed through it, but I love the game. I don't like the way the ending palaces are paced.
Now, is that a consequence of front loading some of the like life stuff early on?
It very well could be. The way I always went about it is you can decide what you do each day. You can go to school, you can study, you have social stats so you can kind of build up. You can go interact with your confidants, the people that the other characters. You can build relationships with them and kind of change your dynamic, or get new skills when they're in your party. And what I would do is, rather than focus on social stats and building these relationships, I would go and steal the treasure first thing. And so you have a set amount of time. You have like maybe a month before there's some consequence if you don't change this person's heart. So you have to do it before, April 20th. And so I would go, if I'm on like March 18th, I'd go right to their palace. I'd complete the palace, and then I'd spend the rest of the time just upping my social stats. I figured, I have to do it anyway. So it probably would have been better for me had I just, maybe had a day where I'm upping my social stats, then I go into the palace and I get so far, then I come back out. The next day I up my like confidant level, and then go back into the palace, do a little bit more. So it's probably my fault. But I just kind of had my own way that I wanted to go about it.
Well, that's a nice thing about games like this. And the sad part is that you don't know how the game is going to evolve as you go on. So you don't know necessarily how your actions affect the gameplay further on. And I guess sometimes... putting in too much work can sometimes work against you.
Yeah. I think, part of it is that as you get into these later palaces, they give you more time. And so if I'm doing it in the first few days and I have like a month and a half before, the end of it, I'm sitting there just making decisions for like months at a time in game. And that's not interesting. I think the other part of it is that I lost it. Dang it.
The loading screen does say take your time, like in the bottom corner.
Yeah, I guess I should have heeded its advice. I remember what I was going to say. As you progress, they spend a little bit more time going from one palace to the next, because they have to connect the ending of this character's change of heart to finding the next person that they're going to go after. So there's a lot that happens in between. And so when you pair having a month and a half of decision making with, 5 hours of exposition to connect this plot line to this, you just have a lot of sitting there reading.
I could see that being draining pretty quickly.
Yeah. But I did power through it. It took me about 15 hours to get, through the last palace's ending into the next palace, finish that, powered through the stuff to connect that to the final palace. And so hopefully in this next week I can actually beat Persona 5 after I'm at 97 hours currently.
Well, we'll see where the payoff is for you.
Yeah.
I think that'll be interesting.
I definitely got my money's worth out of it, at least.
Logan, I think you played something else this week.
Yeah, so I've been revisiting a game that is probably one of my most played games of all time. In terms of a series, Monster Hunter probably holds that. But in terms of a singular game, Binding of Isaac Rebirth is something that I keep coming back to. So I've put in well over 400 hours on my Mac, and then I am nearing 200 hours on my Switch. But I've never 100%ed it, and I think that's one of those things about that game is people try to do everything. They try to unlock everything, and it takes a long time unless you're extremely good at the game. So I've been playing as one of the harder characters in the game. Some people will say that it's the hardest character in the game, the Keeper. And that is just, it's a pain. I have not yet had a successful run with the Keeper. Partially because I haven't tried as much. Because, sometimes if you guys have played Binding of Isaac Rebirth, and for those who are listening and don't know what it is, it's I would say it's a twin-stick shooter of sorts, but it's also a randomly generated dungeon crawler.
Roguelike.
Yeah, it's a roguelike. But what about this character is so difficult is he has very, very low survivability. So he has 2 hits. He can take 2 hits before he's dead, right? So in any given room, he can only afford 1 hit. He also doesn't use hearts. His life is coins, which if you use a coin to refill your health, it also doesn't go into your stash of coins, which you can use to buy items and use for other things. So there's just a lot. It's a very different character. He also has a very, very low rate of fire. That's balanced out with the fact that he shoots 3 tiers at once, but it can still be very, very difficult to actually get a successful run. And I mean, with Isaac, there's a sense of RNG with it. Sometimes I know people who will, if they don't have a good first floor, they'll just restart a run. They'll just nope, not going to deal with it. Which I'm not like that, which is probably why I put more hours into it than not, and why I haven't gotten this far, because I'm patient, and I'll go until I die, even if I'm having a really bad run. Because I find having those really, really poor runs where the RNG gods are just kicking you in the butt, you have to rely on skill. You have to rely on strategy, and it makes you think, and I'm a better player because of that. I don't think I'd be as good of a player in Isaac if it wasn't for those runs. But man, I had one earlier that I was getting going. My tier rate was getting down there, so my fire rate was a lot faster, and then my tiers were a lot stronger. But then you just go into the wrong room, and you totally get screwed. So, oh man. And I mean, that game's, yeah, there's a reason I've put hundreds of hours into it. It's a satisfying experience. I remember the first time I ever beat Mom, and it was in the remake, which is Rebirth. And I just remember feeling so satisfied. And you can sit down, you can play for half hour, 40 minutes, and then just finish a run that you succeed at. And then you're like, yes! And then you go do something else. But it's the same kind of feeling that I've been getting from Bloodborne as of late. And I like a game with a challenge. I like to struggle with a game and to fail again and again and again before I finally figure out what I'm doing wrong and I can succeed.
Yeah, I have not put nearly as many hours into Binding of Isaac as you have.
Yeah, I'm like
It'd be hard too.
easily over 600 hours. Easily.
I don't think I've even like eclipsed 100 hours. I think it's even far less than that.
I remember the first time I bought it, I bought the original on Steam, and it was over the summer that I put like 40 hours into it, which is more than I was expecting to even put into this game when I bought it.
So you bought it for like $5.
Yeah, I actually think I bought it for like $1.
Didn't you? Who bought it for me? Somebody bought it for me.
It
Oh,
might
was
have
that
been me.
I don't think it was me.
I think that was you, Paul.
I
And
think
also,
it might have been you
that was
and
my,
Josh.
Yeah, that was my first game on Steam.
It's a good first game. I know, like I bought it on sale. It was like $1.50, and so like
I bought it right after you, I think.
I couldn't have recommended it enough as soon as I got done playing it, because like it's so addictive.
Yeah, and
keep
Rebirth
wanting
is
to go
just
back.
improved in every way.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. I don't know. I mean, I can play for a few runs at a time and put it down, like you said, come back to it. I just don't come back to it as much as you do.
Right. It's been a while. I haven't played it in quite some time. But today it felt right.
So Nintendo decided that they were just going to tell us that, there's going to be a Smash Brothers Invitational and there's going to be a Splatoon 2 tournament, both at E3. And they were like, yeah. And then they just walked away and dropped the mic. Okay, sure. All right.
They can do that. They can do that because people freaking listen, especially in the age of the Switch.
So I like Splatoon 2 tournaments. They're fun to watch for me. Splatoon 2 is well built for tournaments because of the spectator mode that they programmed in the game, which is really cool. But I think the more important thing right now is that Smash Brothers is getting its Invitational. I remember the Smash Invitational, I think in 2014 for Smash Brothers for Wii U and 3DS. And that was just a really fun time because we hadn't really seen a lot of the game in action. So this was going to be a really good opportunity just for us to watch the game in motion. The thing about this is that Smash got announced just a couple weeks ago, and in 3 months, they're just going to blow the lid off of this game, and we're going to watch an entire tournament of it take place, and probably to have the game come out 3 months after that.
I really like the timetable on this one.
It's just
I really like the timetable on this one.
Yeah, so I mean, people who were like, well, it might get delayed. No chance. No chance. If it gets delayed, it comes out a month or two later than it was supposed to come out. But it's coming out in 2018. You can tell Nintendo is as confident as they've ever been. So when they say 2018, I'm like, it's coming out in 2018.
They wouldn't have not put a year in that trailer if they didn't think it was coming out this year. And,
absolutely. I think they got that vibe with like Breath of the Wild is like, they're like, oh, it's coming out in 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, finally.
Oh my gosh!
And so I think they're a lot more conservative about those announcements. It's like, they announced Metroid Prime 4, but they didn't announce a date.
No date.
But they were confident. They were like, okay, we need to let people know that this game exists, but we're not going to give them. We're only going to give them what we are comfortable with, and we didn't need a date. We just need to know that Metroid Prime 4 is coming.
I think they handled that well.
Yeah.
I feel like with this, like, they're at a point where it's close enough and they know kind of the timetable where I feel like it probably did get delayed and it happened behind the scenes with the Nintendo Switch Online being delayed with the announcement. And so I know I'm fairly confident that since they, like, as soon as they picked a date and confirmed that's when it's launching, that was absolute certainty for them that's when Smash is going to be. That's when Switch Online is going to be ready. That's when Smash is going to be ready.
But remember,
they delayed Switch Online just due to the fact that they're like, well, Smash Bros. Isn't going to be out by then, so let's wait. Well, let's give people more of a reason to pay for it.
Remember, after the delay, someone at Nintendo was like, well, hold on. I mean, the next time we talk about Switch Online, there's going to be something big. And I think the something big happened already. I think that was
bigger
it.
Than Smash Bros.
Yeah. So I look forward to watching the tournament. I believe it airs on June 11th, just like last time. So it's the night before Nintendo's E3 press conference. This time, I anticipate that they're going to announce a character during the tournament. I don't think they did that last time because this was the first time they were doing a tournament. They didn't know how many people were going to be watching. They want to make sure that the maximum number of people possible are watching this live stream.
I feel like they're not going to be able to have this tournament without revealing something.
Yeah, people are going to be hungry for it. And, you know, in E3's past, they announced 3 characters at one E3, 3 characters at the next E3. I think there'll be more than that this time, but I guarantee you there's more than enough characters to announce that they can just drop one during the tournament and have enough for the next day.
Right.
We have like another 50 fact bonanza and then have like 150 facts.
Yes.
Something I actually something I want to note outside of that is Nintendo has been building up their competency in different areas very slowly, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I remember a few years ago, they were finally like, okay, we're going to take social media seriously. We're going to take YouTube seriously. Okay, look at our Nintendo Directs. Nintendo Directs were not a huge deal when they started. People were like, what are you doing? Why would you do this? Why are you not waiting until E3? It's because Nintendo's like, we want to do this on our own time, so we're going to start building now. So now when a Direct comes, everybody's like, oh, it's here. It's here. It's like a mini E3 every time, you know? Almost every time.
They've kind of devalued E3 because of it at the same time.
Right, yeah. In a lot of ways. And so in the same sense, you know, they have a few official tournaments under their belt, and you can tell they're kind of slowly ramping it up. The fact that we're having 2 separate tournaments for 2 of their biggest, you know, IPs is pretty telling. I mean, you even look at the logo for the Splatoon World Championship, and it's reminiscent of the Nintendo World Championship, which is great, because they realize it's like, oh my gosh, this whole like World Championship thing can literally be a World Championship, and we can just, you know, have people play, and then, you know, we'll just pay for people to come here, and it'll be a huge event, and there'll be a lot of publicity for this game and for what we do.
And the Octo expansion comes out right after the tournament.
Yeah, and then esports have gotten so big lately that, you know, this is so smart for Nintendo to do.
Oh, definitely.
And I anticipate in the near future that we're going to keep getting more of these events. Obviously, we have the ARMS Open, you know, happening on the 31st.
Hopefully, another Smash character.
Yeah, and can we get a character announcement? Can we get a character announcement?
Yes, please.
Can we, like, okay, right before like the end of it, or maybe after the end of it, you just like, everybody's watching. Maybe they tease it a little bit, and then so everybody's watching the tournament, and then everybody's like, oh.
Hopefully, there's one more thing, and oh, hey, look, it's another Smash Brothers trailer. You thought was ARMS too,
and now
it's Smash Brothers.
And now a special announcement from the ARMS team. Biff comes in. Hey.
Building off something you were talking about there for a second, Logan, I think the amazing thing about the Direct system is just how they've kind of trained us to all kind of stop what we're doing and hold our breath for, you know, the 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 30 minutes that they set aside for these things. You know, earlier, it was this week, right, that the Nindies showcase was airing?
Yep.
And I think all of us kind of stopped what we were doing to sit there and, like, I was at work, I had the Direct up on one screen, and I had our chat up on the other screen. We're just sitting there, I think it was 10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
11-ish minutes, yeah.
But I love how they do this. But then again, Nintendo's also been really good about tempering expectations.
Maybe not so much in the Nintendo Nindy Showcase, but we'll get to that.
Well, except for the fact that it was called a Nindy Showcase.
But online reception to it was awful.
Oh yeah,
they're wrong.
But like
they're wrong. Okay, yeah.
There's going to be a certain amount of hype with anything that Nintendo announces, and they were coming off of announcing Smash Bros.
I agree. So, I feel like those expectations were unfounded in the first place. But let's finish up with Smash before we get there.
Right.
I think you were on a Smash tangent for a second.
Yeah, a little bit. Okay, now I totally lost. But yeah, I mean, just saying, Nintendo's good about tempering expectations. And at this point, if your expectations are not realistic, that's your own fault. That's not any fault of Nintendo.
I can see with maybe like that mini direct back in February, kind of like that was kind of built up and it was easy to get your expectations carried away. Where this is the Nindies showcase. What can you possibly expect?
Nintendo can only show what the indie developers have already prepared. So if they don't have enough ready, there's nothing for them to show. So get over it.
I mean, the biggest thing that they could have done differently here is announced Undertale and that versus the direct previous.
I think the reason they didn't do that is because it would have overshadowed every single other game in that presentation.
Yeah, definitely. And so I 100% agree with how they structured that. It was a very solid showcase, though, for indie developers.
And only for being 10 minutes long, you know, there was plenty of games in there. Not all of them are new exactly, but, you know, there's a couple standouts.
There was games I did not know about now that are on my radar that I would, you know, it looks like I want to buy a few of those games that I didn't know about before.
There's that pool game from Adult Swim Games that looks really fun.
West of Loathing.
West of Loathing is awesome. I'm very excited for that.
The pool game is Pool Panic.
Pool Panic, okay.
I pulled up the image they had at the end that shows like all the titles.
Gotcha. And there was a fighting game too that kind of caught my attention.
Fantasy Strike.
Kind of resembling Street Fighter a little bit, very colorful. I'm into that.
Very wacky.
I like wacky. And we don't have enough fighting games on Switch.
Yeah, it feels like there's a lot of like crazy things going on, crazy moves that kind of break the walls a bit.
Right. Oh, but there is a fighting game that's coming to Switch that I'm very excited about. Have you guys heard about Super Smash Bros?
You don't say. I don't.
It's coming to Switch.
What's a Smash Bro?
What?
What's a Smash Bro? You know, one thing I didn't get a chance to mention when it comes to the Smash Invitational is the fact that it was announced. So you look at the last couple of years when Nintendo announces their E3 plans. You know, they've had a couple of those sketch videos. They did one with Mega 64, and they were really funny. But they either come up like the first week of May or like the last week of April. This is the end of March, and they were like, guys, this is going to happen. So for them to tell us almost 3 months out is just incredibly telling at how confident they are and how potentially big this could be. One of the mistakes I think they made with the Nindies Showcase is that they announced it, like a week ahead of time, as to where Directs they announced the day before. So if they had announced the Nindies Showcase maybe a day ahead of time, expectations could be tempered a little bit more. But now the expectations for the Smash and Splatoon event have room to grow, and maybe that's what they want. At least I really
hope we get a sketch kind of a little bit later on, because I really want to see Reggie train again and have like a nice like comeback video where he's just like he calls out what was the competitor's name? I hope he calls him out again.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, Reggie needs some redemption after that awful showing. I mean, that was bad. The whole match with him and Hungrybox was just him falling off the stage on his own. I mean, excuse me? You called him out, actually the #1 Melee player in the world, on stage at E3 during an invitational, and told him that he was going to kick his butt. Reggie, what is wrong with you?
But that's part of the showmanship. That's part of the showmanship.
You could tell that was completely unscripted, though. Reggie was just on fire.
He's like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this. I wonder, like, if anybody anticipated that he would do it, or it was just something like, I have the power. I'm gonna do this, and then everyone's like, "Oh crap, this is happening!"
You could see how fired up he was, and you know, the whole crowd just started cheering, wailing at the fact that Reggie was stepping up to the plate for this. This is why we love Reggie, by the way. Is he's
Reggie's a work of art.
He's willing to do this kind of stuff. I remember back watching the Wii Fit E3, where Wii Fit was introduced, and you know, the My Body's Ready meme was built on that E3, and you know, before then, Reggie was kind of a stiff, but he's just completely embraced all of it. And that's the best thing. Like, he's so personable. People just love it when he comes out on stage. Even if he's got nothing to say, they're just happy to see Reggie. It's the same way I felt about Satoru Iwata. Rest in peace. Man, that got somber.
Thanks, Brandon.
Sorry.
Oh, no.
Spontaneous moment of
no.
silence.
Well,
You start weeping profusely.
so there's a lot of time before Smash Brothers, gets fully revealed at E3. Like, I anticipate that's when it will happen. I don't think we're going to see any gameplay until E3. Quite possibly the first time we see gameplay might be the tournament itself, which would be kind of exciting in its own right.
That.
See, that's why I think it's such a smart move for them to hype this up so early on. Smash Bros. Got announced. A couple weeks later, they're like, we're going to have an invitational. We're going to have a tournament. You haven't seen any gameplay yet, so it's time for your imaginations to run wild. Tune in, exactly. So I think it was a brilliant play. I'm definitely excited to see what they have. And I hope, like you said, Paul, that they have another sketch or something where they detail the rest of E3. They did outright say that the rest of our E3 plans will be detailed at a later date. So I'd expect that a little over a month from now, probably. So the next 4 or 5 weeks, we'll know what Nintendo's doing at E3. And at that point, we'll be 4 or 5 weeks away from E3. So it's coming in. It's coming close. We're getting there, guys.
Coming in fat. Coming in hot.
So yeah, I mean, that's exciting. I think their Nindies showcase was great. I think
My wallet hurts.
My wallet does as well. A couple of games I would have liked to have seen. Pocket Rumble is just kind of vaporware at this point.
Where did it go?
It's just vanished into thin air. And I think there's a couple other indie games that we need to hear from. Like, we need to know what's going on with Shovel Knight, because it's got one more DLC left before it's completely wrapped up as a project. But other than that, I was pretty satisfied with it. I'm not going to give it a grade. It was a Nindie showcase. This is not Nintendo content. This is content they are curating.
I mean, I was still able to walk away excited for a handful of games that I didn't know about, but I'm now going to purchase.
Yeah, you go into an indie showcase with, like, no expectation. If you're going into an indie showcase with expectations, you're already doing it wrong.
Reevaluate your life choices if you're going into this with high hopes.
Nintendo doesn't put Damon Baker at the front of a video to announce Super Smash Brothers or a character.
We're not going to get Smash Brothers at an indie showcase. That's not what it's for.
I remember, like, watching the YouTube chat during that live stream and just, like, banging my head against a wall, just how stupid some of the comments were. I'm like, guys, did you really expect this kind of stuff at an indie showcase? Come on. Nintendo fans, I'm one of them, but you're all crazy. I mean, look at my room. I can't really say much.
Yeah, you are crazy.
I know, but I'm not that crazy. Maybe I am. I didn't think Smash Brothers was coming at the last Direct, and then I had to eat crow.
I was convinced that it wasn't. Everybody was saying it. Andre of Game Explain was on his high horse. It's coming, it's coming. I was like,
Andre,
insane.
You had to know.
Insane.
There's no way.
I saw his points, and like the day of, I was kind of starting to reconsider that, it actually might be possible. I didn't want to put my hope on it, because there's a solid chance that I could be disappointed, and I didn't.
I was definitely, like, in denial. I was like, no. I mean, even when it happened, I was like, that didn't happen. That didn't happen.
One more thing. And then he snapped his fingers, and then magic happened.
Where's that meme?
One more thing. Oh, one more thing. Okay. Please understand. Well, I think that wraps up this week's show. So I want to thank you guys for watching.
We love you.
Thank Paul and Logan for bringing their beautiful faces to this wonderful show that we do. If you like what we do, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Leave us a like and a comment. If you're watching on Twitch, please follow us there. And if you're watching on one or the other, please switch to the other one and show us some support. This podcast will be available on all your favorite podcast sources on Monday morning. So you can look forward to that. Please leave us a rating. That really helps the show grow. If you want to get involved and talk to us directly, you can do that at www.breakroomarcade.com. There's a link at the bottom of that page to our Discord server. If you go in there, chat with us, we might talk about what you're talking about on the show next week. So do that. Also, if you want to talk to us more directly, you can Go to our Twitter pages. I'm at Babababs. Logan is available at LoggyDoves, and Paul is available at Gunnysaurus. If you want to talk to us as a collective, you can go to at Breakroom Arcade on Twitter. We're also on Facebook, where you can also watch this show live on Fridays at 7:30 p.m. Central Time. Thank you guys for watching. Don't break your backs. Please break in those games. But for now, break time's over.